This is AI Command App news for Saturday, April 25th, 2026. I'm walking you through the AI and tech stories that moved markets and reshaped business this week. Five stories on the agenda today: a $40 billion capital commitment from Google to Anthropic, a surprise CEO transition at Apple, the AI labor crisis stops being theoretical, a $1 trillion week for chipmakers, and China's DeepSeek closes the gap with frontier models again. Story 1. Google has committed to invest as much as $40 billion in Anthropic, according to a report from Ars Technica. That follows a similar but smaller follow-on investment from Amazon just days earlier. $40 billion into a single AI lab from a strategic competitor. The implications are not subtle. Google is hedging against the possibility that frontier AI capability does not stay inside Google. Amazon is doing the same through AWS. For business leaders, the takeaway is that the so-called race for AGI has now turned into a capital concentration story. Two of the world's largest cloud providers are placing structural bets on a third-party model lab. If you are running a business that depends on AI APIs, your roadmap is now downstream of these capital flows. Pricing, availability, and even model behavior will reflect investor priorities. Story 2. Apple. TechCrunch and Wired both confirm that Tim Cook plans to step down from the CEO role in September. Hardware chief John Ternus is the named successor. This is the most significant leadership transition in big tech this decade. Cook took over from Steve Jobs in 2011. He turned Apple into a $4 trillion company built on operations excellence, services revenue, and the iPhone supercycle. But Wired's framing is blunt. Tim Cook didn't crack AI. That is now job number one for John Ternus. For investors, Apple has been the laggard in generative AI relative to Microsoft, Google, and Meta. The market has been patient because of the cash flow profile. A new CEO with a hardware engineering background suggests Apple may finally pursue a deeply integrated AI product, not just a partnership story. Watch the September keynote. Story 3. The AI labor crisis is no longer a forecast. It's here. CNBC reports that Meta is cutting roughly 10% of its workforce. Microsoft, separately, has offered employee buyouts for the first time in its 51-year history. Combined, that's 20,000 jobs from two companies in a single news cycle. The official framing is efficiency. The honest framing is that AI is now performing enough internal knowledge work at these companies that headcount is being repriced. If Meta and Microsoft are doing this, expect every Fortune 500 to update its workforce plan. The deflationary impact on white-collar wages will be a story economists are tracking through 2027. Story 4. Nvidia closed at a record on Friday, pushing its market capitalization past $5 trillion per CNBC. Intel surged more than 20% on signs of a turnaround driven in part by U.S. government backing. AMD shares jumped 12% on essentially no company news, riding the chip sentiment. TSMC also hit a record after Taiwan eased single stock investment caps for funds. What this tells you, the AI infrastructure trade is broadening. For most of 2025, this rally was a one-stock story. Now it's chip makers across the board, plus memory and packaging suppliers. If you are positioning a portfolio, this is the moment when everyone owns Nvidia becomes everyone is overweight semiconductors. That has its own risk profile. Story 5. DeepSeek. The Chinese AI lab previewed its V4 model on Friday. MIT Technology Review highlights 3 reasons it matters. The model handles much longer prompts than V3. The architectural changes deliver real efficiency gains. And TechCrunch reports DeepSeek's own claim that V4 has nearly closed the gap with leading frontier models on key benchmarks, both open and closed source. If that benchmark claim holds up under independent testing, the strategic picture changes. Open-weight Chinese models running locally on commodity hardware would compete with closed-source US offerings on price and capability. Procurement teams should be asking what their AI dependency looks like in 18 months if open weights catch up. Quick hits before we close. Tesla quietly disclosed a $2 billion AI hardware acquisition in its 10Q filing, a story that broke on Hacker News and Electrek. The market is still digesting what was bought, and the Trump administration warned of big tariffs if the United Kingdom does not drop its 2% digital services tax on US tech firms, per CNBC. That's the next leg of the trade policy AI story. Watch for retaliation language out of Brussels and Westminster. That's your AI news for today from AI Command App and P. We'll be back tomorrow with another briefing on the stories shaping AI, business, and the markets.